Joining me today, Simon, to talk about sustainability and the Net Zero Challenge. You're Chief Exec of IMA, the Insulation Manufacturers Association, which is the representative body for PIR and PUR insulation in the UK. So have the views of your and that of your members changed over recent years in terms of sustainability and in particular climate change and the role that insulation plays?
I don't think our views have changed so much as the views of society. I mean, we've always understood that our products had a very important role to play in delivering thermal efficiency. Its society has moved in line with us, and there is a realisation that we have to make our buildings a lot more thermally efficient, a lot better. We've got a number of longer term targets, 2050 net zero carbon being the principal one. And therefore there is a catch-up by society and by government and other agencies that realise that the fabric first, making the fabric of the building as efficient as it can be, is a primary requirement.
Do you believe there's a greater understanding now around the impact of climate change and the importance of reducing our carbon emissions? Or is it still a case of, there's grand headlines that talk about climate change, but in terms of actions and outputs at sort of, at ground level, still very little happening?
Yeah, I think there's an enormous amount of traction on understanding that we have to do something, but there may still be a gap between the aspiration of what needs to be done and how we achieve it. Those who are sceptical are a very, very small minority now. There is a realisation that we have some serious issues to face. And of course the difficulties then is how you turn that aspiration into reality, and construction has a big role to play in that.
So government has announced ambitious plans to create a number of new homes, I think it's 300,000 a year by the mid-2020s, which isn't that far off. In addition, they've announced that the UK will be net zero by 2050. Do you think we're being over-ambitious, trying to actually tackle volume of housing but also net zero at the same time?
I think it's good to have some pretty stringent targets. I mean, that's really where we've got to be. If we aim too low, then if we miss it, then we're missing by a long way. If we aim high and we still miss it, then at least we're going in the right direction. What we have to do is ensure that all of those homes that are built are to a higher and a greater standard, that we don't have the performance gap between where houses should be, the standard that houses should be built to, and actually what we're doing. We
know that the industry is facing a skill shortage, and actually at the moment we're facing a real material shortage. So again, are we asking too much?
Yeah, there's some really big fundamental stuff there, because we know that we can build to a very high standard. We've done it in the past. We've built to Sustainable Code Level 6. When we had that, we were able to do that. You can build a passive house. So we do know how to do it. But do we know how to do it on a mass scale? And do we have the skills to do it on a mass scale? And that's really, again, one of the big question marks. It's not one solution. There needs to be an understanding that you have to build to a high standard. But those are issues that have to be addressed. It's not necessarily, it's not one solution and then suddenly we're going to get it right. There's lots of issues within there.
I think it's interesting that the last 12 months has probably changed. So I think we'll probably start looking more at sort of room in roof, etc. But we also might find that with COVID changing, I think actually it's been putting a focus on the fact the construction industry has continued, so might form a bit more of an opportunity for young people as a career path.
Yeah, construction traditionally hasn't. It's not seen by school leavers as a great career move. We do need to encourage younger people to look at these careers, but at the same time, the companies need to offer career paths that make it attractive. We're sort of in the foothills of what we need to do, and we need to actually get up to the top of the mountain.
So quality is something that's come under scrutiny recently. How do we manage the construction process to ensure that we're building as we're designing?
So the government has set the target. So the big one is the 2050. Before then, we need stepping stones to get there, because we can't wait until a few years before then and then realise that we haven't done it. We need to evaluate how we're getting on between now and that period. We've got the future homes target, and we've got the future building standard that are coming out they should be out in soon, and that will kick in 2025. But what we've also said is that there needs to be a mechanism to ensure that happens. We've had targets in the past, we've had lots of those, and if there are loopholes or there are weaknesses, then they will be utilised. So you have to have a mechanism that actually makes everybody realise that you can't get away with building to a standard that is not acceptable.
So what role do manufacturers and trade bodies such as IMA have in this process?
My manufacturers, they're producing very, very high quality thermal insulation. So we know that the product is very good. You need to be sure that the installation is as it should be, and it does ultimately, I guess, come down to money. You get what you pay for. So I think there's lots of things, and as far as what a trade association can do, is that we hopefully speak truth to power. We talk to the government regularly, we talk to civil servants, and we talk to other organisations, but they also need to listen to us.
So how do we make sure that, you know, the future home, the future building standard actually has some teeth and actually works?
If you take the housing stock in the UK, so generally you've got sort of three big categories. You've got the local authority or housing association, you've got the private rented sector, and then you have the bulk of housing, which is owner-occupier. The average investment to bring homes up to an EPCC level, which again is not that high. I mean, if we're going to get to net zero carbon, we should be aiming higher than that. But the average investment is around about £20,000. That's quite a big investment. The return on that investment, I don't think, stacks up under a normal cost-benefit analysis. So I think there needs to be other incentives, and over the years you've looked at council tax banding, you've looked at stamp duty, you've looked at lots of things, but ultimately it comes back to the Treasury not making a financial package work. It's not easy, because if it was easy we'd be there, but we know we have to do it, and there is a moral obligation to provide better housing for the next generation and the next generation. Then, just let me say that, and then of course you go on to new build, and new build should be relatively easy, because you set the standard through the building regs, and you have great inspection, great compliance, and you don't allow those houses to be put on the market until they're there. But are they brave enough to do that? We'll see. Most houses that will be around in 2050 are already built. Everybody knows that, and everybody talks about that. So clearly the big win is the existing stock. It's staggering, the work that's required, but on the other side is that, wow, what a lot of work.
Yes.
Great potential. There's, you need a workforce, there's lots, the materials that will be used, there's a whole range of things. Yeah, great challenges, but great difficulty.
There was a recent survey by Construction Manager magazine, which indicates there's a huge shortfall in terms of the skills that we need for net zero. So we've touched on skill shortage already, but actually, if we're now facing a net zero skill shortage in addition to a wider construction industry skill shortage with a 2050 target, how are we going to achieve this?
They need to provide the right incentives. They need to be doing much more to inform school leavers of the excitement of the career. We're looking at a lot more of off-site construction. That won't replace all of the skills, but there is a place for that. The companies need to have these long-term incentives, and that was working in partnership with government and other agencies to find those necessary career paths that make it attractive.
And it'd be interesting to see what does a modern construction site look like, and what does a modern factory look like, when new technologies come in, which they are.
Yeah, long gone are the days where you had tens of thousands of people working on one site in a factory. It doesn't happen anymore because of automation, because of everything that the modern world is. But there are some things that will still need very high quality workers. What we can't afford is that we have all these targets, 2050 target, 300,000 homes a year, etc., but we don't have the people to do it because the current ones have retired and the next generation haven't been brought in and trained and incentivised to commit themselves to a career in these sorts of employments.
So one last question. COP26, the UN's climate change conference is due to take place later this year in Glasgow. If there's one thing that comes from that conference, what would you like that to be?
I think we need to move the rhetoric to the reality. You know, the time frame, the window of opportunity, if you like, is closing, and therefore we need to move from the promises to the reality. So from the rhetoric to the reality.
More actions, less words.
Yeah, I think so. I'd said it exactly like that.
Good. Thank you very much.
All right, David, thank you.